We're back. It's Bradley Stalder, Ryan Reynolds, 2025 Super Bowl preview. Ryan, we're going to get into some of our favorite bets, some of just general trends, do's and don'ts as we're approaching the Super Bowl, some takes, player takes, overall trends. Really excited to get into the Super Bowl because it's been our first 2025 podcast. How do you have any New Year's resolutions, Ryan, as we're going into 2025?
I've been lifting weights for the first time in a while, so I wouldn't call that a New Year's resolution, but that's a shift, and I got to be honest with you, I would recommend it. I would recommend it.
Delicious. Yeah, I'm also working on my finesse and physique, and it's just tracking the calories and trying to get my steps up and being a little bit more conscious. And
Sure.
I have the apps for that, but it's an exciting time because not only do we have these New Year's resolutions, but I got to do something for the first time a couple weeks ago, Ryan, as principal of a school. There's a unique opportunity where if there's bad weather, to call off school. I don't know if you had this feeling growing up, but I had this where I looked at the bottom, like the sports scores, just like that, only it was in the morning, and I wanted to know if my school was called off with a little banner at the bottom. So now I get to fulfill my childhood dreams of calling off school. It was almost like a Christmas present at 6 a.m. Periodically that would happen on very bad days. And I knew that meant I got to watch TV. I got to relax. I got to eat garbage,
Man, you get a day off. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great. It's great, Ryan.
It is. It's good stuff. All that power in the palm of your hand, impacting lives. I like it, pal. I like it.
Well, we're going to bring you some power, you viewers, you listeners, you people here on Man versus Machine tuning in on a Wednesday night. For those who are new, Ryan and I spent all of the 2024 season Wednesday evenings at about 9 p.m., spent an hour doing reviews and previews, giving some insight, fantasy goodness that you need to know. And we're going to bring you the fantasy goodness. We're going to bring you some good bets for the Super Bowl, and we're going to continue to bring you some goodness as we get into the rest of February, March. Of course, as the content picks up, we will be picking up. So there we go. Ryan, we've got the big game on Sunday. We've been looking forward to it all year, and Chiefs fans have been looking forward to their three-peat ever since they got their second one. Before we even get into that, isn't there's copyright, right? Over the term three-peat. Like what?
I learned this today as well. Yeah. Pat Riley, right?
Pat Riley has the copyright over the term three-peat. So every time the Chiefs publicize it, they have to pay. I don't know what the number is. I don't know if those terms are disclosed, but we'll see if the three-peat comes to fruition. But the big game is often the most bet game of the NFL season. Obviously, week one, is a high bet total. But there's a lot of fun things that you can do as well in terms of betting. So before we get into the specific players, what are some trends or things that you notice about Super Bowl betting that you want people to know about as they're preparing for the Sunday game?
That's a good question. The first one is, this is the most bet game in any sport every year. And sports books only have one game to concentrate on too, instead of 16, even 4 in the rest of the playoffs and so on. So the lines are going to be sharper. They're going to be moved early. The line almost every year is moved a little bit right within 12 hours of the spread being released. I would keep an eye on that. And this is more of a casual bettor's day, so don't ramp up your volume today just because it's the last football game of the year. Just have fun, play it cool. I prefer pools for the Super Bowl for most people than straight bets, but just have fun. Don't think you're gonna get rich this week.
No, don't think you're going to get rich. Um, there are some do's and don'ts of the Super Bowl bets. A couple things that come to mind. One is, you mentioned the volume of bets. We don't want to get too carried away. You also don't want to cut. You want to make, if you're going to make bets, of course, this is like common sense. You want to use like, what are the ranges of outcomes that could happen? The most likely scenarios are the ones that are going to happen. Like the sports books are very sharp. Especially since, as you mentioned, they're concentrating on this one game. They're going to be very tight. So if you're going like you don't want to bet too far off of where these lines are. Like, you can certainly take your own stances, but understand that the risk involved moving off of those lines are baked into what type of price you're going to get. So that's just the reality of the situation. The others, like a couple years ago, I learned about the Tom Brady rule, which was that these non-mobile quarterbacks, these pocket passer quarterbacks, they tend to not run very much. And in fact, there was a line when Tom Brady was the quarterback where it was over under 0 rushing yards. And I was like, well, like, he's going to get something, like, not nothing. And even looking through the game logs, right? Game logs can be informative, certainly, of trends, but there are macro trends that we have to keep in mind. One is that the winning quarterback will usually like kneel out the last couple plays of the drive. Like, they'll keep them on the field, and sometimes betting the under on those rushing yards, especially for the pocket passing quarterbacks, is probably a good way to go about it. So don't get too carried away with Mahomes is pretty mobile. Jalen Hurts is obviously very mobile, so not as applicable for this one. But as we move forward, like Joe Burrow was not very mobile. Tom Brady, those pocket passing type of quarterbacks, long-term macro trend. We don't want to get carried away with their mobility, or even with just the game log trends of seeing positive, 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 and then saying, oh, well, it's 0. Like, the line is very sharp. Any other thoughts on the macro trends or the quarterback?
Yeah, that's a good one. I have two thoughts real quick. The first one is related to yours. To use Tom Brady as an example, like you said, it doesn't really apply in this one. But if you're going to bet his under 0 rushing yards, I would check to see what a parlay would play with the money line for the same team. Parlays, the hold's too high for me at this point in most cases. But I would check to see if there's value there, because the chances of him going under at 0 and then winning, or those are very correlated. That's probably going to happen. And the other one is, you know, star players and isolated night games are a thing where I lean under as a matter of course in my model. I try to get to the under. I have to talk myself out of it. That's big time the situation here. So I look for guys like Noah Gray. Like every year the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl, I look for Noah Gray because I know how he's using the offense. I know that there's going to be a design rolled out to him for like 6-7 yards where he could get 5 yards on it and maybe hit on one play. I look at the guys who are your buddies, your high school buddies, your college buddies. They're not going to be flooding the books with bets on Noah Gray. So that's the kind of stuff that I look at.
I love it. It, like, from a fan perspective, there's been a lot of rumblings and jibber jabber about the referees being in favor of the Chiefs, and that's been like a interwoven storyline. That's the data doesn't really back up too much. Like, Roger Goodell has come out and talked about that. But if we're so confident that the refs are in favor of the Chiefs winning, wouldn't you just bet the Chiefs, Ryan? Like, like, really, from that perspective, you shouldn't be betting against the Chiefs, but it's hard to bet against them overall. Like, they only had a couple losses this year. The market is showing slight favor right now, at least based on the sports books I'm looking at. Chiefs -1.5, so slight favor, but they always seem to find a way to win the close games. They've done it all season. They had the closest margin of points for what, a 15-win team, like of all time. So this is a very unique and special team.
Yeah.
We'll just say, like, do the Chiefs have what it takes to three-peat?
Yeah. I have so many things to say, but we just like the NFL is rigged thing in particular. Like this literally is pulled from a conversation in my personal life where a guy I've known my whole life, where I'm just like, listen, dude, if you think the NFL is fixed and they're favoring the Chiefs, why in the expletive deleted are you not betting on Kansas City in every playoff game to just win?
Right.
It's it's like, dude, like, come on. Two, from my perspective, I've been in a room with, a former NFL official, a former NFL GM that's in the Hall of Fame, a former NFL coach, and I've heard them talk about rules. This would be the most advanced conspiracy theory in the history of the world for all of these guys. You ever talk about football and rules the way that they do and have it to all be like planned? It's just, mind blowing. But to answer your question, yes, I mean, they absolutely can three-peat. They're like the Patriots. They're just a tough out. They're well coached. They're good at everything. That's why these the fourth down play with Josh Allen, like it's a game swinger because they don't make a lot of mistakes. And if they get one break their way, they're going to be tougher to beat. So I definitely, and here's the last thing, Bradley. The reality is when you look at games where the Chiefs are in like a high leverage spot, like a playoff game, a Super Bowl, anything like that, and they're a slight favorite or an underdog, and if you bet on them every time in those situations, you'd be doing pretty good right now.
Yeah, they come away victorious. We're gonna get into some specifics, some player takes, some trends, and give our way too early 2026 Super Bowl prediction. But at first, we're gonna come to you about Fast Draft. Let's check it out.
Oh, I see all this mock draft information out there. Oh, this mock, that mock. Hey, what about a real actual fantasy game? The Flex 4 game on Fast Draft, draftfaster.com, is open. You draft 6 running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. The top 4 enter your lineup every week. It's that easy. It's that simple. Drafts take 5 minutes. There's a $50,000 prize pool. It's $15,000 to first. It's just a $5 entry. And the best part, no rake. No rake whatsoever on Fast Draft, the first 2025 Best Ball contest to open in the world, is ready for you to draft up to 150 teams. Draftfaster.com, draftfaster.com. Start playing Best Ball for real.
Best Ball is open on Fast Draft, Ryan, and just today, the Rookie Origins opened. So, look, I wish I could play. I'm in Michigan. Michigan's coming soon to a state near you. Download the Fast Draft app at fastdraft.app. Use the promo code STACK for a 100% deposit match up to $25. That's right. Download Fast Draft today. We'll get started with Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts, going into the playoffs, was dealing with some injuries. Like, we were concerned about the shoulder. We were wondering if the passing was going to be there. But then he put on a clinic, right? He got the rushing touchdowns. He's been able to, the volume hasn't been there for like A.J. Brown as of late, but he's made the plays to Goedert and to DeVonta Smith. He seems fully healthy, and given 2 weeks, Jalen Hurts, I don't have any issues putting him into like a DFS lineup. I think that's who's going to score more fantasy points, Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts? Probably going to be Jalen Hurts with all the weapons, and they didn't outlaw the tush push this year. How are you approaching Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I mean, he's the key to this game. Obviously, for DFS, yeah, definitely you play him. Last time these two teams met in the Super Bowl, I believe he ran for 3 touchdowns. I think the 300 yards passing is less likely to happen this time, but he's been one of the better goal line backs in the league for years. So in DFS, he's definitely just plug him and play him. No arguments there. Overall, he's probably the most unique quarterback evaluation I've ever had. I love running through this. I hated him at Alabama. I thought he was like a 6th, 7th round pick. I hated him. He went to Oklahoma, radically different dude. I've never seen anything like it before. Radically different dude. Early Philly with Doug Peterson, there was a little bit of both, but closer to the Alabama side. that Super Bowl run, like we just mentioned, where he was in the, he doesn't hurt his right shoulder towards the end of the year. Like maybe he wins the MVP that year, plays the best game of his career in the Super Bowl. If he doesn't drop a snap, essentially, he's probably the Super Bowl MVP and the Eagles win. So the ceiling's there. Then the last 2 years, like you said, he's had his moments. And like you said, he does seem healthy, where last year especially, he was clearly banged up for most of last season. But I've worked for Joe Banner. This is something he says a lot. The Eagles philosophically throw early to run late. So if this game's close, I could see his passing game volume being higher than most expect, because it's been low all season. But again, if he plays well, Philly's going to win. If he plays like he has for most of the last 2 years, they're going to lose to the Chiefs.
Yeah, and the Chiefs, they have Chris Jones, in the middle of that defensive line. It may be difficult to see Saquon get going early. We've seen Saquon in the second half of games just gash and gash and gash. Admittedly, against Washington, first play of the game, 60 yards, but he's also gashing near the ends of the game, and that's so dangerous when you have a triple option. Hurts can keep it, hand it off to Barkley, or look for a Brown, Goedert, or DeVonta Smith down the field, and everyone is healthy. Like, yeah, AJ Brown has been dealing with some knee stuff. Like, when isn't AJ Brown dealing with knee stuff? To be fair, DeVonta Smith missed a few games, he's back. Dallas Goedert missed a few games, he's back. Lane Johnson should play. Like, this Eagles offense is all set. So I think they're going to test that secondary. The secondary for the Chiefs has come together. They've backfilled from L'Jarius Sneed leaving in the offseason, who was one of the best defensive backs last year, and a real cog, a difference maker. It was interesting when I was first evaluating L'Jarius Sneed. I was like, he doesn't have there isn't anything that stands out, except that he just makes difference. Like he'll have a sack, or he'll have a tip pass, or he'll, a forced fumble. Like, something always happened with L'Jarius Sneed, and it seems like the Chiefs have been able to replicate, or at least backfill, a lot of the difference making that he made in their secondary. But that kind of ties into why this game total is 48.5, right? Maybe that's the philosophy for this matchup. When I first, without diving into it, my first impression, and you shared this earlier, was with these types of games in prime time, the expectation is that maybe they're a little lethargic. Like, maybe the offenses need a little bit to get going. We think of a couple years ago with the Tampa Bay game, right? Where Tom Brady it wasn't going for him. But looking a little deeper at these offenses and some of the defenses, Philly, second most plays this season, third highest rate of no huddle offense, fifth most plays per 60 minutes on offense. And you're like, okay, that's fine, but maybe the Chiefs are going to slow them down. No, the Chiefs were fourth in total plays, but 32nd in no huddle, but 9th in plays per 60 minutes. So both teams are getting their amount of plays in. Then how are they matching up defensive wise? Well, Philly had the third most defensive plays, and Kansas City had the seventh most defensive plays. So both teams, this could be a real heater because of the volume of plays. You'll get an extra couple drives compared to the average team. That's why this game total seems a little higher, and maybe we should be okay with a 48.5 over under.
Yeah, no, it again, we talked earlier today about this, and just off the cuff, I thought 48.5 was a little high. Now you literally laid out exactly why it is, because there's going to be another drive or two. Both these teams are fast-paced offenses. They both have really high-quality offensive lines too, where in particular for the Chiefs, they moved Joe Tooney out to tackle, which changes the calculus a little bit here. But the strength of their lines, the interior, Carter and Davis are a monster duo, so they can potentially mitigate them too. On the other side of things with the line, the Eagles, had a premium offensive line my entire adult life. It's just been the way it is. But one thing I'll say to round this out, since you started with this guy, Barkley's a great player. Obviously, he had a monster year. He mostly beat up mediocre or worse defenses all year. The Chiefs are not that. So I don't think he's exactly the sort of guy where everyone's going to bet overs on him this week. Where just as a sports bettor, a guy who's been doing this for a long time, like my immediate lean is to bet against that. Even though we'll see if I stay away from it or not by the time Sunday rolls around. But he's exactly the kind of guy where they could clean up because people are going to be betting overs on Barkley.
Yeah. Barkley is for 120 or more rush yards is plus 117. The average, this is per DraftKings Sportsbook earlier today. The average bettor is putting Barkley's number at 128.8 yards.
That's high. That is high. That's high.
For reference, no one else has more than 55.7. I mean,
just looking at rushing yards lines for years. I mean, 101's a lot for like anyone,
Yep.
So that's pretty high. That's pretty.
I feel like taking the under 128 is pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, he can definitely beat it. He can get there on one run, essentially. Not like beat it individually, but like he can put you on life support on that bet with one run. But yes, I will bet under 127. That I can almost guarantee you. I'll take my chances.
So, looking at how this game could play out, if the Eagles' defensive line is very good and they put pressure on Mahomes, I think that leads to more of the dump offs to Kareem Hunt or the rollouts to Travis Kelce middle of the field. That's why, even though Uncle Trav, as he's affectionately known as, Uncle Trav has had his ups and downs this year in terms of, just straight production. We've seen the massive games, right? We've even seen the big games in the playoffs, but we've also seen some duds in the playoffs. Just to give some reference, like Kelsey's last game against Buffalo, 2 for 19. But the two games before that, 7 for 117 and 8 for 84, both with touchdowns. Like, the range of outcomes is extremely wide for Kelsey. And with the other weapons that exist there and the pressure that Philly always seems to bring with Jalen Carter, in the middle of that defensive line, it seems like Kelsey would be the outlet play, but also a Noah Gray. You mentioned him earlier as someone we don't want to forget because Noah Gray is going to be on the field as well. It's interesting. Noah Gray, we'll talk about Hopkins in a little bit, but Noah Gray has a higher average yards that's being bet than DeAndre Hopkins.
People are gonna. That's the sort of thing where people are probably gonna lose a lot of money on DeAndre Hopkins. But like you said, we'll talk about that later. I will talk about Noah Gray though. The thing with Noah Gray is, especially against like Nolan Smith, elite speedster, teammates with Jalen Carter in college, both first round picks, same draft class. He's been playing his best football of his pro career lately too. He can derail a game. Andy Reid's probably going to have Noah Gray chip or block down on Nolan Smith and then leak out in the flat a few times, and that's how he gets there.
I mean, that's how you're gonna have to beat a team like the Eagles because you're probably not going to have too many plays develop. Downfield, you're not going to see Mahomes to Tyreek Hill type. Maybe you'll get one shot to Xavier Worthy. That's probably if there's one player that is going to get a 40-yard touchdown, it's Xavier Worthy. But even so, even if it's Xavier Worthy getting touches, we've seen increased touches for Worthy. I wonder if those are maybe closer to the line of scrimmage anyways, and just allowing blocking to develop. And that's we saw at the beginning of the year, and then the Chiefs seemed to move away from it a little in the middle of the year, and then they did a little more near the end of the season. But let's take a step forward with Xavier Worthy. Like, he's taken a step this year. It seems like he's earned a full role. And if there's any hiccups with Rashee Rice coming back, Hollywood Brown's probably gone. Like, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 2, 3 territory for next year for 2025. He's pretty safely a top 36, but can he get to top 24 wide receiver?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. I mean, he's kind of like in between McCole Hardman and Tyreek Hill, if that makes sense. I mean,
that's a wide range, Ryan.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
I was gonna add some context.
Whoa.
I think he's close to the Tyreek Hill end of the spectrum, but they're trying to accomplish the same thing with both of those guys. And he's just, like you said, they're giving him, I don't want to say like more of a full route tree, but they're giving him touches near the line of scrimmage to get him going. They've been giving him volume the last like third of the season. I'll frame it as. And I agree with you. If anyone's going to have a 40-yard touchdown in this game, he's the most likely one. So the other thing is Vic Fangio knows that too. And if Worthy's going to eat, he's going to eat early because Fangio is one of the better second half adjustment defensive play callers really ever.
Yeah, looking at what Xavier Worthy did near the end of the season, week 15, 6 for 46, but he had a score there, 11 targets, 2 red zone targets. Week 16, 7 for 65, and a touchdown. He was the wide receiver 11 that week. Week 17 against Pittsburgh, 8 for 79 and a touchdown. He was wide receiver 15 that week. And then in week 20 against Buffalo, 6 for 85 and a touchdown. He was the highest scoring wide receiver that week, in the conference championship. So the wide receiver 1 even is within the range of outcomes for, a player who finished wide receiver 38 in fantasy points per game this year, 7 receiving touchdowns. He was almost immediately inserted, into a significant role. I mean, week 1, 64% of snaps, but then that's just developed where he hasn't dipped below 83% of snaps since week 14. Like, he's been a full-time player, and I think that continues next year, even if Rashee Rice gets healthy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, he's the kind of guy where if he's going at like the 3-4 term, someone's going to have to stop me from taking him just because of his upside.
Yeah, it's going to be fun drafting a little bit of Xavier Worthy, but Rashee Rice is also getting a lot of love in the best ball streets. I'm just pulling up the ADP right now. Xavier Worthy is 39th overall, wide receiver 20 in the best ball streets on Underdog Fantasy. Rashee Rice, wide receiver 22 at 44th overall. So, yeah, round 4 for both of them.
Injury for Rice, plus does he have any outstanding legal situations left? I know the one got canceled. I don't know if the other one did.
I think that there's still something that's
right?
outstanding for Rashee Rice this offseason. Yeah. I wonder if, like, that's just going to be forgotten. Yeah, it might be forgotten.
I mean, Brad, if the officials are fixing the league so the Chiefs will win, I definitely think they're going to ignore Rashee Rice's off the field issues to help him out.
Well, and it's an LCL as well, and it happened early in the season.
Yeah,
you have to wonder, like, for a player like Rashee Rice, how he attacks the rehab, I think, so significantly impacts how he's going to perform in 2025. Like, not just like at the start of the year when everything is slow, but the entirety of the year. We know elite athletes who come back from these big time injuries that cost them the rest of the season. If they're top tier, great, they're going to crush during their next year. But if they're not focused on getting better, if they're not hitting the rehab, if they're not animals about that, I don't know. And if you've got legal issues that you're spending time thinking about, like, hey, I'm talking to my lawyer for an hour every couple, days about whatever situation is going on. Like, that's a distraction from the rehab. So I wonder if Rashee Rice is kind of a fade until we get more clarity and we hear that he's practicing and attacking. And like, we need to hear those types of things coming out of Kansas City, because I haven't heard a wink. And I'm the news desk director for Player Profiler. Like, I haven't heard anything about Rashee Rice, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, you're a thorough guy, so if you haven't heard anything, there isn't anything. And yeah, I mean, again, the legal stuff, like that's something I leave to other people. The injury stuff, we'll see. The thing too about him is just the role he plays, where if he plays and he doesn't miss any time, he's going to be super valuable again. But again, the legal issue, usually these things get settled in the second year after they happen. So we'll see. We'll see.
All right, Ryan, we're going to rip off the Band-Aid. Is the nuke nuked?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, he had like a nice little run for like, what was it, like a game and a half essentially, and it's been pretty rough. Like, isn't his playing time, like, hasn't that fallen off a cliff too?
Yeah, so week 12 against Carolina, he went 5 for 35 and a touchdown on 6 targets. Week 13, 4 for 90 on 9 targets. Week 14, 4 for 32 on 9 targets. So like those games, that bunch of 3 games when he was after he was traded, 5 red zone targets, 2 touchdowns. He was over 115 air yards in 2 of those games. But ever since then, so week 13, 61% of snaps. Week 14, 56.7% of snaps. Week 15, 46.6% of snaps. Week 16, 50% of snaps. Week 17, 46.8% of snaps. Against Houston, 33% of snaps. Against Buffalo, 19% of snaps. The coaches came out afterwards and said, well, it's just how it happened. It wasn't intentional. We weren't intentionally keeping DeAndre Hopkins off the field. Yes, you were. Stop lying. Like, stop lying. They were intentionally keeping him off because when they threw him the ball, he was not getting downfield. He was not making the catches. It was clear. It was a big flop. It was a big flop. And you know what? You got to have a veteran presence in the locker room. You got to have, that's what the Bills did when they tried to acquire Amari Cooper too. Like, Cooper busted just like Nuke, but you got to try to take your shots when Xavier Worthy, Justin Watson are like the guys in the wide receiver room. Sorry, Hollywood Brown, you were gone almost the entire year. Like,
yeah, and Justin Watson, he's been like the Energizer Bunny. He just won't go away. I think there's one path to Hopkins again. Like, we're talking about him barely seeing the field, so this is a very narrow path. But earlier in the year, Cooper DeJean had a really good year as a slot corner, but Adam Thielen smoked him, went over 100 yards, and it was all like veteran technician type things. Hopkins, if he sees some time in the slot, can make some of that happen. But I also think that makes a lot of sense for Travis Kelce, because he sees a lot of work in the slot. So I could see Travis Kelce working over Cooper DeJean in a similar fashion as Adam Thielen did earlier in the year. And the thing that I really like about that is Adam Thielen was a clear main vein in the Panthers passing attack, just like Travis Kelce is. So if they didn't over game plan for Adam Thielen, why are they going to do it with Kelce against a better roster? Where I'd even think, at this point, Kelce's still probably the bigger threat than Worthy, but Worthy can hit you more in one play. So I think there's a path to that working out.
Yeah, the poor Hopkins. I was so high on him going into the season, and then he got hurt. I think that really did derail the career. But you have an aged wide receiver. This was the pathway. Like, as much as the target share was there, the receiving chops, he's all set. I don't think he's gonna re-sign. Maybe he goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he retires. It was just that bad, like faded into oblivion. Like, this is what these bigger bodied, like, he's not a Chad Johnson, big bodied or was it? Brandon Marshall, big bodied receiver,
Yeah.
but like he's still one of those guys that he's going to make the contested catch. That's what he's known for. And when that's taken away, the half step separation that you can manufacture is taken away. No, sorry. So yeah, you mentioned Cooper DeJean, 61 receiving yards allowed that week against Carolina. Wild stuff. That was a good pick there, Ryan. Besides that, Washington, he gave up 53 receiving yards. This is per PFF. Against Los Angeles, this is the Rams. Against the Rams, he gave up 49. And Cincinnati gave up 41. So really not giving up too much in the slot.
Nope. He's been good all year. It's just the Rams one's interesting too. I'd be curious to see if that came against Cooper Kupp specifically, because if it did, it's another wily veteran. And again, just all technical stuff. So he's been awesome this year. So is Mitchell. I think there's a little bit of edge there for the Chiefs.
Okay, I mean, you brought up Cooper Kupp. We'll deviate for a second. Cooper Kupp, this is off the script, off the cuff. He's on the trade block, the LA Rams. There's been chatter about maybe a reuniting in Detroit with Jared Goff. There's been some other chatter about maybe he'll go to the Giants or once they get a quarterback. Poor Ryan is like, no, please, maybe something, anything. Sell some jerseys for the Giants. Where does Cooper Kupp end up? And is this the end for Cooper Kupp in fantasy?
Yes, to fantasy. I mean, if you don't make it work with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford after Matthew Stafford turned you into Jerry Rice in the past, things are not looking good going forward. In terms of where he's going to go, is he going to play for free? Meaning, is someone going to have to pay him his contract where he makes like $20 million a year? Because if that's the case, I have no idea what's going to happen to him.
The Rams have said that they're willing, or at least reportedly have said that they're willing to eat some of the guaranteed money to help facilitate.
Why? Yeah, I mean, the Giants, the reason that literally put like a dagger through me is they're the sort of team that would do that right now. And oh gosh, please no. I mean, if I think something that might make sense is if the Bears don't re-sign Keenan Allen and they can get Cooper Kupp cheap, like having him do that would make sense. Detroit, I mean, he kind of does the same thing as Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it's just wherever he goes, like if you have a really young wide receiver room, which is why the Giants make sense, and you just bring him in as like a mentor type thing, like
Keenan Allen for Roma Doomsday.
Right. Or Cooper Kupp to the Raiders maybe if they draft the quarterback, something like that. So yeah, I mean, but in fantasy, I don't he's like a 15th round pick at this point, I'd say.
I don't know if he's that late, but
yeah, I mean for me, he's like a cross off at this point for me. Depending on
well, I mean, he's on Underdog Fantasy. He's wide receiver 52.
Okay.
He's behind Stephon Diggs as an ACL tear.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that sounds about right.
But he's ahead of Michael Pittman Jr.
Oh my God. Well, you know what? If Anthony Richards is going to continue to play quarterback for the Colts, poor Michael Pittman. That makes sense too.
You did hear the report about Michael Pittman though, right?
No, I don't.
He played through a fractured back most of the season.
See, he's a wide receiver who doesn't really run his mouth, so that doesn't surprise me. I'll add him to the list of Malik Neighbors and Mike Evans of wide receivers I like in the NFL. I guess at this point I can throw Puka Nacua in there too.
Oh, love me some Puka. Love me some Puka. I was on the early Puka train. Yeah. But I think Michael Pittman, if we're looking at players outside the top 30 of wide receivers, I think Michael Pittman is just such an easy click that late. Like he's being drafted at his floor. Like we know he's a wide receiver 5. Like it's okay. But the pathway for just last 2 seasons ago, he's being drafted at the 2-3 turn.
Yeah. He's a buy the dip guy. Yep.
The Indianapolis Colts could so easily move off of Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they probably give him one more year, but even if they don't, like you said, you're buying him at his floor. He's already shown that it can be like a significant producer. If he's going too late, I'll take him too.
Yeah. Easy click. Whew. All right. We've got a few more things on the docket. We're going to talk about Dallas Goedert, DeVonta Smith, Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP candidate, ? Kareem Hunt, and our way too early 2026 Super Bowl predictions. But before that, a word from the Podfather about Player Profiler.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free, and one of our key missions is to make as much statistics and information and deep analysis available on PlayerProfiler.com for free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all this possible. If you can't do All In, that's okay. We have a draft kit. Or you can just subscribe to the player rankings. Those now include tight end premium FFPC ranks. Our brand new data analysis package will blow your hair back. And of course, there's our Dynasty Deluxe and our DFS Dominator. Take a moment, check out our premium services to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.
That's right. Thank you for tuning in to Player Profiler. And as some of you can tell, Player Profiler News has turned into Player Profiler Now Plus. So we're going to bring you the live streams this year on the Plus network, on the X machine. All of these things are changing brands, Ryan. Part of me, we look at like a name brand and like, of course there's new, of course there's change, but also like, I love the news desk too. Like the news is, I run the news desk at Player Profiler for those who don't know. So I'm the one who's probably sending all of the writers, like, this is what we need for news. Like, oh, we get notification. All right, we need this. Do we need videos? Do we need this? All right. Hey, we're getting it done. So, yeah, it's been great navigating the news desk, but it's also, been its own little beast, trying to discern like what is news, because that's an interesting question of like what's newsworthy, because you can go to certain like news sites, like, I'm not going to name names, but you're going to go to these fantasy news sites and you're going to say, well, this player was connected to this team, or this player could end up. That's not news. That's not news. That's just somebody spouting their opinion. And there's places for opinions in fantasy football. There absolutely is, Ryan. That's like why we have these shows. But people want concrete information.
Yeah.
Right? Did this happen? Did a reporter say this? Did like a beat reporter, did they say this? Did an ESPN reporter say this? Did a GM say this? Did a coach say that? Did a player say this? Was there a transaction that happened? Those are news items, right? Someone gets drafted. That is a news item. They put out a statement. That's a news item. Like, those are important to report on. But speculation, just, there's no action. There's nothing actionable about it. There's no shifting of opinion about a speculation of possibility. It's not concrete enough. It doesn't bring us enough goodness and truth, frankly. So, look, everyone can approach the news differently, but how I like to run the news desk is there a quote that shifts our opinion, or is there something that shifts our opinion? And that's one of the reasons why I'm okay with our periodically, like Johnny Tuma or Jeremiah Retzlaff will put in the news, like, these players changed ADPs. That's news because something happened. Like, There's a reason why. The public is viewing this in a different way. And that is an objective fact. Like the ADP went up 5 spots. They dropped 2 rounds, whatever it was. The biggest riser this week in the dynasty rankings was this player. And that's the fact. The opinion comes into why we think that matters. So when it comes to listening to news this offseason, go to playerprofiler.com/news and check out all of the news blurbs. We'll have the rookie updates. I've put up 5 blurbs from the Senior Bowl just this a couple days ago of players, whether they played in the Senior Bowl, whether they didn't play in the Senior Bowl, and what that mattered. Like, sure, how they performed, how they shifted in like the mock draft databases, and what this means and how you should approach it. Like, there's an opinion part of it, but the news is based on something objective that happened. So, and that's how I want to run the news desk. I don't want it to just be opinions. So, sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant there, Ryan, but yeah, check out playerprofiler.com/news, and it's just a stream. You can scroll through and you can see all the news.
I mean, I don't like being a news grinder, so I love stuff like this. And like you said, reliable information is important. Like if you're putting your money on it, even if you're doing it like, semi-professionally, you're doing it as a hobby, you want current, valuable insights. And I love that stuff because I hate doing it myself. So I love your style, man. I do.
Well, thanks, Ryan. We're going to crank into the Philadelphia Eagles number 2 pass catchers, ? DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. Their receiving yards are something worth looking at. Right now, Dallas Goedert's average receiving yard bet is at 52.6. DeVonta Smith at 59.6. Goedert was number 7 among tight ends in target share, number 8 in target rate, number 2 in catchable target rate, number 7 in yards after the catch, and number 2 in yards per route run. And he put up his best game since week 3 against Washington. Yeah, he went 7 for 85, but it was mostly closer to the line of scrimmage, only 43 air yards, mostly yards after the catch type of receiving. So Dallas Goedert or a DeVonta Smith, who has kind of taken like an alternating turn with AJ Brown in terms of how effective he's been this year. At least it feels that way, because DeVonta Smith's been kind of cold lately, 55 or fewer receiving yards each of the last 3 games. But in week 17, crushed Dallas. Week 15, 109 yards against Pittsburgh. But before that, his season high was 87 receiving yards. So who are you taking if it was a coin flip between Dallas Goedert, DeVonta Smith, receiving yards?
You know what I love about this question is, I just think of matchups, and like if I'm Steve Spagnuolo, I probably put OJ McDuffie on DeVonta Smith in like obvious passing situations more often than not, and then throw a bunch of different looks at AJ Brown. And then the sports better in me sees them as close as they are, and it's like no one's going to bet on Dallas Goedert's over, So I think I'm actually going to go with Dallas Goedert.
I love it. That's
great. I feel a little, I'm a little ashamed to say it out loud, but I think that's where I'm heading right now, man.
That's so exciting. Go Goedert, go. A player who came back from injury, at the beginning of the season, Hollywood Brown didn't play until week 16, 17, 45 and 46 receiving yards, 35 receiving yards against Buffalo. He didn't catch any passes in week 20 or against Houston in the playoff game, but his line is at 31.5. It feels high for the type of, historical production that Hollywood Brown has had. He's a downfield threat. His yards per reception is usually very, very high. Yards per target, usually among league leaders. in a game that we talked about already, where we think Philly's going to generate some pressure, that Kelsey's going to be very involved, or Noah Gray is going to get rolled out, or there's a spider that just dive bombed me. Kareem Hunt might get some work. Hollywood Brown at 31.5 is 50 or more receiving yards plus 128. I don't think there's any juice there. Like, I don't think there's a reason to go after a Hollywood Brown receiving yards bet.
You're not. I mean, if his average is that, like, there's not enough. Yeah, there's not enough value there to bet over 50. And like, I think if you're gonna bet on Hollywood Brown and some kind of over capacity, you want him to go a little bit way over, because it's going to be built on him catching like a 30-yard pass. So yeah, that's going to be a stay away from me as well.
All right, we've got a couple minutes left. Super Bowl MVP time. Ryan, this is like one of your wheelhouses for futures, for MVPs. Like, the awards are your thing. We've seen Mahomes win this award before, and he's the odds-on favorite to win Super Bowl MVP. Next closest, though, Saquon Barkley, followed by Jalen Hurts, and there's no one else really outside of those three that's a legitimate contender for this award. We talked about how Barkley may start slow. Do you think that impacts his MVP, Super Bowl MVP odds in terms of what the defense may do, the Kansas City defense may do to stop Barkley early, and may lean to the majority of the game being a quote unquote Jalen Hurts game?
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, just from like a general observation, I was stunned at Jalen Hurts odds. Like, Brock Purdy, for instance, was plus 220 around this time last year. Hurts is plus 350. That's wild for a quarterback on a starting quarterback on either team, and a close spread. As far as Barkley goes, this is also pretty unprecedented. Like, him being the second favorite is, I cannot think of another instance where a non-quarterback was second. And again, it's a good point that you make that he's been beating up teams late, but again, like, those have mostly been mediocre rush defenses. Like, he had like a third of his season against the Rams, in 2 games. So, I'm going to stay away from Barkley. I think if you're going to go further down the list, in the regular season MVP, quarterbacks run the roost. They win virtually every year. Super Bowl MVP, it's more like a 60%, 65% type shot. Wide receivers have won a few times in recent years, but when they win, it's an under. So historically, which you wouldn't expect. They just account for like such a large portion of the opposing team's passing offense. Travis Kelce's interesting. Tight ends never won the Super Bowl MVP. Travis Kelce has a good game, and Patrick Mahomes has a middling game, and the Chiefs win. This is a media thing. They're going to want to give it to him, so he's pretty interesting.
They want to see Taylor Swift smooching the Super Bowl MVP. Like, this is America, people. This is what the American people want. This is what the Swifties want. They want to see Uncle Trav smooching Taylor Swift. That's what. Give the people what they want. Bread and circuses.
No, I don't think they're going to fix the game to make it happen, but I do think if they're close, they're going to give him the nod. And I'd rather bet at him at plus 1,500 than Barkley at plus 260 without even thinking about it.
There we go. All right. We got to talk about the Chiefs backfield, Ryan. Kareem Hunt has not let go of this backfield. It's clear that he's the RB1. He's going to get the majority of the work. We know the Kareem Hunt, third best odds of first touchdown score. But from like a macro perspective, is Isaiah Pacheco toast for fantasy?
I don't know about next year. For this year, it's just been the most bizarre thing. Like, if you were going to try to breathe some life into the running backs don't matter narrative this season, it's, you have Derrick Henry rushing for 1,900 yards, like 30, Barkley going over for 2,000. That's kind of killed it. But like, Kareem Hunt came off the street and has been their most productive runner since, even when Pacheco came back. So I personally view Hunt as the starter and like the more significant player in this backfield, where like, if Pacheco does well, it'd almost be a surprise. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that would be a major surprise.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be that way. It's again, that's one of those things when I watch film in the offseason, I'm going to look at it and be like, how did this happen exactly? So But yeah, it's been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks.
This also, I think, provides a pathway for the Chiefs to draft a running back
Sure.
into the 2025 draft, and we will all lose our minds. We will be like the face of Jim Carrey in The Mask, just whoop when he sees Cameron Diaz, just whoosh, that eyes popping out, jaw dropping, tongue rolling out. That's what the fantasy community, because they did it with Clyde Edwards-Helaire was drafted, and well, we know how that turned out. So, all right, Ryan, who wins this game?
I'll go with the Chiefs, and I'll go with, they've had, I'm going to throw this in there too for you, Bradley, just for the people at home. If you're in a pool, the Chiefs have poured purple Gatorade 2 years in a row. In 2020, it was orange. And if you're going with the Eagles, yellow-green. Yellow was the last time they won, different coaching staff, but you get the double whammy of yellow and the team colors. So Eagles win, you're going yellow-green. You think the Chiefs win purple? I think the Chiefs are going to win.
Chiefs.
I think they're gonna have to pay Pat Riley a lot of money over the next 12 months.
Hashtag worth it. I also am taking the Chiefs. I'm taking the Chiefs. But before we leave, we are going to offer our 2026 Super Bowl prediction. Who is it going to be? Who's going to face off, and who's going to win in 2026?
That's a good one. I'm going to go with something interesting at this early hour. I'm going to go Chargers, and I'm going to go Lions. I wanted to go Bears, Bradley, but I'm not there yet. I want to get there. I want to get there.
I think Buffalo.
I hope so.
And then this is the tough one. Buffalo and you know what? Screw it. Green Bay. Let's go, baby. Go Pack, go.
They were the other one I was debating, man. I was an NFC North team that's not Minnesota.
Did you hear that Josh Jacobs came out today and said they need a number one wide receiver?
He's not wrong, because it'll make everyone better. He's not wrong.
And then Dontavion Wicks quote tweeted the video and was like, thumbs down, laughing emoji. Like,
that is actually funny. It's what happens to him then. You know what? They'd probably have to trade him for the number one receiver. I know, like, if I was trading a veteran quality receiver that's still a number one receiver, Wicks is probably the dude. I'd want Jaden Reed, but Wicks might be the guy that give you. So that's
I don't think the Packers would give up Jaden Reed.
I hope not.
Even with who should the Packers target? Now you've got me in the last 2 minutes of who should they target, because the obvious name is like T. Higgins, but that's too expensive, and I don't think that's part of the pedigree of the Packers.
It would be hilarious if they passed on him in the draft with Aaron Rodgers and then signed him to big money. That would be hysterical. Oh man, I almost hope it happens for that. That's a good question. Who should it be? Because he's the obvious answer. Like Devontae Adams makes sense. Garrett Wilson, maybe. Like if he's just disenchanted. I don't think Green Bay would trade for Garrett Wilson though, because they'd have to pay too much. What about Michael Pittman's not really like an actual alpha receiver, so that he doesn't count. Never mind. Scratch that.
They wouldn't trade Pittman. He plays too important of a role.
Yeah. That's a good one. Terry McLaurin,
Jalen Waddle to the Packers.
Maybe Tyreek Hill. Maybe Tyreek.
Tyreek wouldn't play in the snow.
That's true. You're right. He would. He's not. Yeah, I've been to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Tyreek Hill does not belong in Green Bay.
He's not going to do that. He's going to stay like
Miami or Vegas.
Get traded to Tampa, or if he's going to stay in Florida. Well, it's been great chopping up with Ryan. Make sure you're following Ryan on the X Machine at Ryan Reynolds NFL. You can follow me, Bradley Stalder, at FF Stalder on X. Ryan and I are going to be bringing you the goods in the 2025 calendar year, man versus machine. Until next time, good luck with all your Super Bowl bets, and we'll be back with probably some best ball stuff. Like we'll do some content. We'll do some preseason. Maybe we'll do some rookie stuff. We'll get some guests on here, Ryan. Who knows? The off season is ours to mold. It's going to be beautiful. Man versus machine. Until next time, everyone, good luck in the fantasy football streets.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.